Welcome back to the Gentle Counsellor podcast. My name is Crystal and I support mums through their inner healing and parenting journeys. For those of you listening right now, this episode is a little bit different because back in October of 2021, it was World Mental Health Day and I had some wonderful friends join me over 3 days to talk all about mental health and motherhood at the Aussie Mums Mental Health virtual event. I hope you enjoyed these conversations, which were recorded live at the summit. I'm also thrilled to let you know that we will be returning in 2022 and plan on making it even bigger and better. It may or may not involve a retreat. Wherever you are right now, I hope these episodes find you when you truly need it. I would love to hear your feedback on these chats, so make sure you're connected with me on social media at The Gentle Counsellor. If you'd like to receive an email once a month that is full of freebies, parenting tips, links to podcast episodes, beautiful affirmation screensavers, and other goodies, make sure you are signed up to my email list. I hope you enjoy this chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Aussie Mums Mental Health virtual event. I'm joined with Jen from Single Parenting Solutions, and she's joining me to talk all about mental health and single motherhood, which I know is going to be an invaluable conversation to have, and something that I don't have personal experience with. So I think it's really important to let people that are experiencing it have a voice. And also Jen supports single parents too. So she definitely has all the knowledge and expertise here that she's going to share with us. But if you are joining us live, do say hello in the comments so that we know you're here. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them. If you're watching this as a replay, still say hi to us as if we're watching this live together and ask your questions, because we will come back to these chats to make sure we're not missing anything, because we love talking to you guys. So I'm going to let Jen introduce herself to you all, and tell us a bit about her business, and I was going to say why you got into it, but I mean, it's probably a little bit obvious, but I know that you've got a lot of professional experience behind you as well in the mental health industry. So yeah, welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much. My name is Jen Gallagher, and my business is called Single Parenting Solutions. And I am a single mom myself. I'm a single mom of a 5-year-old little boy, and his father and I have been co-parenting since pretty much pregnancy. So pretty much his entire existence. So I felt we had broken up right before I found out I was pregnant. And I felt it was a personal decision for me to invite him into the kind of routines of like pregnancy and going to appointments and things like that. So we kind of did, some of those things together. So I consider it still co-parenting through pregnancy and things like that. But then what I do for my business is I specifically help uncoupled parents with young children. So that's like children under 8 years old. So babies, toddlers, preschoolers, kindergartners, young kids, because when I was pregnant, even going from my son growing up until now, I hadn't been able to find the resources and support specific to young kids. So there was stuff out there that was for like older kids, and they were talking about like cell phones and when your kids have cell phones and stuff. And I'm like, my baby is like 3 months old, and I'm thinking about like, bottles and like talking about like poopy diapers and different colors and things like that. And then you think about all the milestones in early child development. I mean,
a lot.
It was not, even though that I have a background I have a master's in social work, and I was practicing as a clinical social worker, as a therapist, prior to me being pregnant with my son. So I have that background and concentration in child development. I didn't even think about the things that I didn't even think about potty training. Like that's the thing. Like potty training is the biggest of the early milestones, besides like, breastfeeding and bottle feeding and spoon feeding and things like that. Like potty training is in 2 homes, it's like bananas.
It's like, for real, how are we going to do this?
It's bananas. I mean, potty training just in one home. What I mean? Now it's like lots of potties, lots of different time schedules. You know what I mean? There's no, what I mean, like a schedule there. It's just, let's hope this sticks. You know what I mean? Like, let's do our best. So, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the things, and then there's so much too with just the beings of children and like their personalities and what goes on and like those big feelings and, all those things that sometimes during, when another, like, an ex-partner or your former partner kind of is involved in all of that, and they're spending time with them, and then they come back, and then, your child is like, Tasmanian devil. It's like you go right to, or, a parent would more likely go right to the other parent. And it's like, what did you do?
Yeah.
When in reality, it is a transition. And it's not just a transition of like going from playtime to dinner time. It's like a transition going from one entire world to another entire world. And then also being in the care of this figure and then the care of you.
Yes.
So
it's a lot.
It's a lot, but there's, what I mean? There is reasons for that, those big emotions and that, I mean, separation anxiety is something that is pretty much part of like, the development.
Yeah. It's normal part of development.
Yeah. And then sometimes when you put in resentment in that family dynamic, it can get off the child and it could lead to more friction because of like this blaming. And it's like, even though it's like, oh, I care about my, my child, because they feel as though that they don't want to go over to the other parent's house or something like that. And it's like, maybe they're just really bonded to you right now, and it's really hard to leave,
and even in separation anxiety, even though that's a lot of the child experiencing that separation anxiety, I would also argue that you as a parent experience separation anxiety. So even though I don't have experience with single parenting or co-parenting, I can imagine what that would feel like to essentially have to hand off your child. And I'm talking in the context of, if you have the like custody arrangements, where you might not want to, but you have to because of legal reasons. And so there's also single parenting in the context of single parenting, like a 24/7 parent, because there is no other person. They decided, they made that choice to not be involved. And then there's the co-parenting, single parenting. So I guess I would also assume that there are differences between that. So I don't know, whoever's following along right now, if you want to let us know if you fall more into that single 24/7 parenting, or if you are in a co-parenting situation. Because there's a lot to navigate between all of that. And I think it's really important to talk about that with mental health, not only understanding the implications for your child going through that, but for yourself. Like, I can imagine that it's really hard and can feel even more isolating.
Yeah. And when you had spoken of a single parent by choice, a lot of the time too, it's not single parent by choice. It's just an absent partner.
Ooh, when I meant by choice, I meant the other person making the choice to not be present. Sorry.
Not be present.
Thank you for allowing me to clarify what I meant.
Then I was also thinking of, surrogacy. And,
there is, actually, that is another element. People actually choosing to have children on their own. There is that other aspect too. Yeah.
There's lots of different, types. And so the mental health implications of it, yes, it is very isolating, and it's not just because it's so, even if you are not sharing time, parent sharing, parenting time sharing with a partner. Sorry, I looked up all the legal stuff in Australia.
Jen did her research.
Those are the terms.
Yes, I don't think we clarified where Jen is and what time it is for Jen right now, which she only just informed me of, because I would not have allowed her to be here otherwise.
So I'm in the United States. I'm in South Florida, United States, and it is 2:15 here in the morning.
AM.
I have my son on a baby monitor right over here, just in case somebody wakes up, and I got my thing so he doesn't hear me or hear you guys.
So Jen was telling me that she was reading up on like the Australian lingo of things, which was very impressive. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I was very impressed because of the language used. It's very it's very positive language. I just wanted to say that, because in America, the language that's used it's almost like it almost feels like property. So a lot of the terms can literally just be put with maybe an item or a piece of land or something, where in Australia you have parenting time, which is, the time between homes, because and then you have parent responsibilities, which is like, that's what it is.
That is.
And I wish America would say like that.
Interesting.
But we say custody, and then so there's a lot of stuff that
I would like to believe that we're very child-centered in our approach, that the best, because I only know from my experience,
it's very family centered,
and I know from my experience working in schools and in school counseling, because I've worked with people co-parenting, is that we always try to bring it back to what is in the best interest of the child, which is great. But I also think that's why a conversation like what we're having here is also important, to acknowledge that you don't have to feel great about it.
Oh, yes.
Like your mental health could possibly be affected by it. And I think that deserves acknowledgement as well, because parenting is hard enough. And I have someone else with me to, bounce back sometimes. I can't even imagine what it's like to do that with no one, or to do that with someone part-time, or if you have strained relationships still because you went through a breakup. I mean, there's a reason for that, and how that's really awkward to navigate too.
And it's recent. So because the parents that I work with have young kids.
Yes.
So if you think about the timeline of birth and stuff like that, they're relatively
fresh
recent,
wounds.
Breakups or, separations.
So what are some common difficulties that people seem to have in the single parenting realm, more in the context of mental health? What kind of are the common themes that come up for you that people are really concerned about with like their own well-being?
Well, I mean, just depression. I mean, it's the first and foremost, because you're experiencing grief and loss from a relationship ending. And then if you now are going into a co-parenting relationship, it's a different type of relationship. So even just now having that reminder, because it's not a relationship that you can kind of step away from and process it. You're processing it while you're living in it.
Yeah. And it could be very different for what you were hoping for. Like that kind of dream that you had of what you thought it was going to be like. Yeah.
And that's the grieving your dreams of how you thought you would raise your children. And then, I mean, for me, especially, and I talk to other single parents about this too, is also grieving the future that you thought your child would have, or you wanted your child to have.
Yeah,
that's a big one. And, and in my personal experience, I've done that many, many times, and I really, I know grief is weird because I kind of welcome the whole process, because I know if I don't really kind of feel through it, then it's gonna come out real funky somewhere, so I gotta feel it. So I've grieved a lot about what my idea of what a family was, my idea of what my son's future would look like. And, and even now, just of like little things that are happening, it's really hard too. And it's not necessarily grief, but the pain of seeing your child struggle in one environment that you have no control over.
Yeah.
And especially because there's major changes. So, when we think about like children, maybe having like unwanted behaviors, like in school, like those kind of like red flag things to like people outside of the, gentler parenting community. A lot of times you look at the environment, like, are there any major changes in the family? Are there, something going on? And divorce and separation, you have many major changes that go on. So, it's not just the kids who are experiencing these major changes too. If there's major changes in one home at a rapid pace, which it tends to be, there's a lot of times mothers, and actually, no, I can't even gender stereotype here, but I have a lot of mothers who I talk to who necessarily don't go into the dating scene yet, but then their children's father, they do. So then there's like that kind of major change on one side, and then there's more of the stability on the other side. So, and a lot of times that will happen because, you'll have maybe one parent that's a little bit more, has more awareness. Doesn't make them a better parent. They just have, a different sense of awareness of their child. Yeah. And, that is, that's a lot of weight too.
Yeah.
I know that I feel it.
And I've just had this realization, how has all of this looked in the pandemic? Like, it's because I don't know if you've experienced lockdown or anything. And I just realized I have no idea how that's been looking for people with how are you co-parenting, or if you're a single parent and you've had like a support network and then lost that, how has that been affecting people? Do you have any information, or I don't know if you've experienced any changes with that?
So I know specifically like in the United States, because of the court systems and stuff, many of these issues are like not on any type of formal agreements or anything. Like the, pandemic stuff is like, nobody was planning for like some major, viral, health crisis, that's not on, parenting agreements. Yeah. So a lot of times when there are like things that do come that need to be, or a parent feels the need to bring to like, something like that, everything's backed up. So even that approach to like finding a solution is not even there either. So there's a lot of, I feel as though, and my heart goes out because I feel it too, but a lot of like crisis, like there's a lot of crisis because there's a lot of no answers and just being, told like, well, you got to deal with it, and just pandemic is scary, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the whole thing of not having control of somebody in your other, of them in their home, it's scary. It's really scary. It'd be great for everybody to cooperate and stuff like that, but really they don't have to,
Yeah. And like you said, it's something that just came out of nowhere. Like we weren't expecting it, obviously. Yeah. We didn't know it was going to happen. I don't think it's ever anything that crossed any of our minds to think about, hey, if we go into, a global pandemic and lockdown, what are we going to do with our kids?
Exactly. Yeah. No, and there's a lot of stuff about that, but, and the support that's, especially in like, losing jobs and things like that for, and then finding daycares and those open. That was crazy. I mean, right now where I live and pretty much the United States, we're kind of back on track.
Yeah, I think from me, like the common thing that comes up with single parents is lack of support. So most clients that I would see are single parents because the other person's made the choice to not be present, basically. So and I don't imagine that looks different really for people in co-parenting situations because everyone needs support. Even people in partner relationships, you still need support. Like parenting is hard. That's why the whole saying is you need a village, because you do. So what kind of advice or tips do you have for single parents to find? Sorry, I just got distracted by my cat.
Okay. No, I liked it too. I was like, hey.
What kind of tips do you have for people to build a support network around them?
So it's really funny that you said like everybody needs support, because not just from a single parent who is parenting 24/7, but then also in co-parenting relationships too, there tends to be some type of inconsistency on one side or the other.
Right.
And when you've scheduled and you have like concrete plans, maybe it's work or maybe it's certain things, and then it's like, now I have to find somewhere to, bring my child. It's actually even more tricky than if you had to like plan, ahead to try to do it, because it comes, out of nowhere. But what I would suggest is really not focus necessarily on like the people that you wish that could help you, but more of the people that are currently like in your life.
Interesting.
So if you have like neighbors, because I mean, a lot of the times it's like, I wish my family would be more present, or I wish, they would offer to help and things like that. But then you have a best friend who is like, ride or die and like loves you. And it's like, hey, I can maybe ask for help here. And then what can I do for you? And then ask them, so it's a mutually, fulfilling relationship. So it's kind of like, not just focusing on the people that you want them to help you, but the people who are there. So,
that's great advice.
We forget about our friends. I mean, if you think about it, sometimes,
because either childless friends, you think that you like assume that they don't want to, or if you have friends with children, you assume they don't want the additional stress or work of a child. But then I also sit here as someone with like 2 kids, and I would more than happy take like 5 kids, but also I have a background teaching, so like that's nothing for me. I'm used to having lots of kids around, but like I'd be more than willing to do that for someone. And then I think I've heard of people doing that where they do like shared babysitting. It's like a group of friends, and so they'll kind of dump all the kids on one person while the rest go out, and they kind of like rotate around, like taking turns. I think that's like a great idea if you're able to do that. And so it is finding like a really good support network of people you can rely on, but maybe not necessarily finding, maybe just like kind of remembering and looking who you already have in your life. That's a good point.
Like I have my best friend, she's happily married and she has 2 kids. Like she did something for work and she asked me, she's like, oh, I have something last minute, you know what I mean? And she has a husband, and I went over and I, had the 2 kids and then my son, and we had like an awesome, 4 or 5 hour play date at their house. So it's like, it's these things that, sometimes we just forget because we don't want to be a burden on other people. But then you think about like, what can I bring to them? Like what can I do for them? So then, and then also it's like, do they love me? Do I love them? You really think about that.
I love the spin that you put on that. That's really nice. So
a lot of times you can kind of, come to that conclusion, too. And it tends to be the people that we want to reach out to us to offer help that we focus on, versus...
And a lot of times people want to help you. So it's also like, let people love you.
Yes. Oh, it's the control too. Oh, the mama control. I know that I really I really, really work on that a lot, is to let go of the control. Because it's like, I know what to do.
Yeah.
I know how to do it the best.
Yes.
And so it's just allowing, other people to, to just help.
Yeah. In its simplest form, just let people help. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for taking the time to talk with us today. Can you please tell people where to find more of you?
Well, you can most commonly find me on Instagram at Single Parenting Solutions. I am also in the works of kind of really jazzing up my website, www.singleparientingsolutions.com, and shortly a coaching kind of like a membership group program just for uncoupled parents coming shortly, but that's still up in the air right now.
That's awesome.
But you can find me on Instagram, and I do pretty funny videos.
Very entertaining. Yes.
I think it kind of brings some levity to some really tough, really stressful things like co-parenting and single parenting, and to bring some kind of light and humor to all the stress and
cope through humor.
And if you need a laugh, I mean, I think I'm funny. Just go check it out.
Thank you so much again, Jen, for joining us today, and go to sleep.
Thank you, Crystal, for having me. I appreciate it.